It's common to assume that some people are creative and some people aren't. Like it's a personality trait that you either have naturally or you don't. And that's a convenient assumption because it means we never have to stop to ask why. We're all watching instead of making. Nobody is uncreative. There's just a lot of non-practicing artists walking around. Being creative isn't something that you are. Creativity is something you do. It's a practice, the same way movement is a practice. You don't stop being a person with a body because you haven't gone to the gym in 6 months. You just stopped going. The capacity is still there. The natural inclination to move your body is still there, even if you're not doing it regularly. The longer you go without the movement, the more you forget how it used to make you feel. And you can lose the craving for it. But it's always there, just under the surface, just waiting to be experienced again. But we don't talk about our instincts that way. We talk about creativity like it's a gift, like some people are born with a ton of it, along with talent, and the rest of us are just meant to watch and admire and passively consume their output. Which is a really useful narrative if you're building an economy that needs people to constantly feel like they need to buy more stuff. Think about how we teach creativity, or more accurately, how we don't. If the school budget hasn't been hacked beyond recognition, we may get to study art and music as students. But we don't study creativity, and that distinction matters more than it sounds like it does. Math is creative. Science is creative, cooking is creative, problem solving is creative. But we funneled the entire concept into this narrow lane of the arts, and then told most people that they weren't good enough at the arts to bother trying, and then we wonder why everyone feels creatively dead inside by the time they're 30. And that's the feeling exactly, isn't it? When you don't make room for creativity, it doesn't just quietly leave. It seethes underneath the surface. It comes for you sideways, as boredom, as envy, as rage, as apathy, as this dull ache that you can't quite name. Most people have felt every single one of those things and never once connected it to the fact that they stopped making and creating stuff. That feeling where you're scrolling and you see someone doing something cool, and instead of feeling inspired, you feel this weird, bitter pang. That's creativity banging on the walls of the room that you locked it in. And that envy is information. It's telling you something about what you want to be doing and aren't. The more you consume, the more dissatisfied you become. The more you create, the more energized and expansive you feel. You can binge an entire season of something and feel worse afterward. You can scroll for 2 hours and feel like you need a nap. But 15 minutes of making something, literally anything, can make you feel like a real person again. You can feel like you again. The entire economy is designed to keep us on the consumption side of that equation. And that's because when you're consuming, you're generating revenue for someone. And even when you do start creating, the system finds a way to monetize that too. You can't just pick up watercolors. You need the right watercolors and the tweed little brushes and the expensive setup that looks like the one you saw on TikTok. There's a whole aesthetic consumer identity where the buying and the organizing and the displaying becomes the hobby, and the actual creating is almost secondary. And I get it. I consider one of my hobbies to be collecting creative ideas. And another of my hobbies is collecting and organizing creative supplies. But it's easy to get stuck in those aspects and never actually make anything. The market doesn't care whether you consume content or consumed craft supplies. It just needs you to consume. The only person who needs you to be creative is you, which is part of why it's so easy to push that to the side and focus on the things that benefit other people, things that pay the bills and put food on the table, that produce an end result that is externally validated. And if you do throw yourself into your creativity and manage to produce something that other people like, the pressure immediately comes to make money from your hobby and build a brand. You should sell that, people will say in a very well-intentioned way that overlooks the fact that monetizing a side quest is the easiest way to ruin it, to take something you love and turn it into a grind, to take self-expression and play off the table and focus on what other people will give you money to do. It becomes, in other words, a job. What if you made something with no audience in mind? What if you had the freedom to make things badly, to make things that don't lead to revenue or accolades? What if you started and gave yourself permission to finish whenever it stopped being fun? Think about how kids create. A little kid doesn't sit down with a crayon and think about whether the drawing is going to be good enough to share, or whether or not it points to a future career as an artist who has unique talent and a point of view. They just make the thing, because making the thing feels good. The drawing goes on the fridge or it goes in the trash, and either way, they're already starting on the next one. There's no performance in it. There's no optimization. There's just the pure, strange satisfaction of turning what's inside your head into something that exists in the world. And when it stops being fun, they put it down and they make something else. We lose this ability as we grow older. We start creating for grades, for approval, for our friends, for an audience, for money. And somewhere in that progression, the actual joy of making things slipped quietly out the back door. What if you write something that you never publish? What if you draw something mediocre in a sketchbook that no one ever sees? Or try a new recipe that doesn't photograph well, but allows you to experiment with a new-to-you technique? What if you build a wobbly crate from scrap wood, or knit a scarf with uneven stitches? You don't have to be good at something to do it. Did you know that? The world needs more people with 54 interests who are medium good at all of them instead of exceptional at one. Because every time you do something you're just mid at, you open the door to new ideas and creative practices. You discover something about yourself and the world and what's possible with the materials. That's where creativity lives. Creativity requires a certain porosity to experience. You have to let things seep into you before they can become something new. They have to marinate, to mingle with the other random ideas rattling around inside your brain. You can't be porous when you're optimized. And you can't let things seep in when you're just running on fumes. The system keeps you so busy and so drained that creating feels like a luxury you can't afford. You barely have the energy to make dinner, let alone art. So when I say creativity is something that you do, I'm not saying you failed at carving out time for it. I'm saying it's been stolen from you. And taking it back, even 20 minutes of it, even badly, is a genuinely subversive act. Putting down the phone and playing with some materials just to see what happens is a way to reclaim a deeply human part of yourself. You're reconnecting with the version of you who used to race home from school because you had something you couldn't wait to make. And here's what makes it easier than you might think. Originality was never about creating something from nothing. It's combining what already exists in a way that only you can. And your brain is already doing this constantly, looking for patterns, making connections, combining things in the background. We've just pathologized that process and called it distraction or procrastination, when actually it's the raw material of every interesting idea you've ever had. You don't need a totally new and original brand new idea. You don't need to be a creative genius. You just need to take the things that you've absorbed and run them through the filter of being you, which is a filter that nobody else on the planet has. That's creativity. It was never about talent. It was about participation. And the only catch is that you actually have to do it, and do it often enough that it stops feeling precious. Because when you rarely create, every creation carries immense pressure. It becomes the idea. And the problem with the idea is then it has to work. When an idea carries that much weight, it's fueled by stress and pressure instead of flow. You need to create often enough that it's just what you do. It's not a special event. It's not a performance. It's not a masterpiece. It's just a practice. And that's the part the consumption machine steals from you. Not your talent, your frequency. It steals the regularity of being able to make things. And then on the rare times that you do try, it feels so high stakes that you abandon it the moment things don't go according to plan. And you go back to just passively consuming because at least that's easy. And the cycle continues. And you start to believe the story that you're just not a creative person. And the rage you feel from that insight is your creative fuel. You are creative. You always were. You just live inside a system that would rather sell you someone else's creativity than let you sit for a minute with your own. So make something. It doesn't matter what it is. Write something, draw something, build something, bake something, rearrange a room, make a playlist that tells a story. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be finished. Nobody ever has to see it. It just has to be yours.